So today we're going to talk about why dogs are so well behaved in other countries. Now, every time I have a friend or a family member go to another country, and specifically big cities in other countries, Paris, London, etc., they always come back and they tell me how well behaved the dog was, or dogs were that they witnessed. And we don't really see that on such a common basis here in the United States. So we're seeing a lot of anxiety, or at least I am as a dog trainer, I'm always watching everything. I see a lot of anxiety, a lot of reactivity, and behaviors like that, pulling on leash, so forth. Well, I just got back from Toronto, and I watched every interaction I saw between dog and owner to see if I could determine what was going on that was making the dogs that I was watching, and I saw well over 100 dogs. I mean, the pool of dogs that I witnessed to try to determine what was going on was extremely large. But I watched every interaction to see what was going on, what was making dogs there so well behaved. Here are the 5 things that I determined contribute to the good behavior I witnessed. Number 1 is dogs are highly desensitized. They are going everywhere with their owners. So, they're going to cafes, they're going on walks, they're going to parks, they're just everywhere, and they're so used to seeing everything in the world that they're bored with it. And so nothing is highly stimulating to them. The other thing that I noticed is dogs are not over-socialized. This is huge. Dogs are so over-socialized and under-socialized, i.e. back to the desensitization, in the United States. So here's what over-socialized mean. Dogs were not greeting each other constantly. People were not coming up and petting the dogs and interacting with them. And it doesn't mean I didn't see any of that. It was just rare. And if somebody did come up and pet a dog, or 2 dogs did meet, it was for a very short time and then they were on their way. So because dogs weren't so overly socialized, they weren't getting really excited when they saw other dogs and people. They weren't anticipating getting attention or getting pets. They were just, they were rolling with the punches and not concerned about, it being the mayor of the town and meeting and greeting everybody. The other thing that I noticed is out of all these dogs, again, well over 100, all these dogs, not one choke collar, not one prong collar, not one shock collar, 0 aversive tools. I think this is extremely important to note, because when you use aversive tools, you're creating a negative association to the things the dog is seeing that's causing the discomfort they're feeling. So because there was no negative associations happening, dogs weren't viewing all the people, dogs, cars, bicyclists, whatever it was, they weren't viewing them as negative things, and then that causing, anxiety within them. So that was a very delightful, as a positive reinforcement trainer, I cannot tell you how delightful it was to see none of those things up in Canada. Number 4 is there was a purpose to what the dogs were doing. They had a job. They had to get to point A to point B. When they were walking, they were on a mission. There was a destination. If they were at the park even, they were there for a purpose. Every dog I saw seemed like they knew why they were there and knew what they were doing, and they were focused on the task at hand. So I think, having a purpose, dogs need jobs, I said it before, but it really is important. When you're walking your dog, it's fine to let them sniff. I mean, please do, it's enrichment. But the dog shouldn't be dictating the walk. I mean, you should be walking with purpose. Number 5 is people were not so fussy with their dogs, and we are so guilty of this, myself included, because I worry about Trippy all the time, when we're on a walk, and if I see a loose dog, I get all nervous. If, whatever the situation is, I'm thinking about him all the time. We are so fussy with our dogs, and sometimes that fussiness can be too coddling, too babying, too worrying, putting too many human emotions on the dog. It can also pendulum swing to the other side, and we are too focused on being punishment-based and getting frustrated and getting upset with our dogs. And all of that is not beneficial. So those are the 5 things that I really noticed when I was in Toronto that made dogs up there so much more well-behaved than what I'm used to seeing down here. And I want to see more of that down here. And let's go over those 5 things again, just to reiterate them. So number 1, dogs were highly desensitized. They went everywhere. They saw things constantly. Number 2, they weren't overly socialized. Going out in the world didn't mean they were going to meet and greet every person and every dog they saw. Number 3, no aversive tools. No prong collars, no shock collars, no choke collars. I didn't even see people getting frustrated with their dogs. If their dogs barked at something, they didn't even really acknowledge their dog for doing it. And you know what? Their dog just got over it and stopped because they didn't put attention onto it. Number 4, when they were on a walk or when they were doing something, it seemed like they understood the job at hand and they had a purpose. And number 5, people were not so fussy with their dogs. They weren't getting frustrated with their dogs. They weren't being reactive to their dogs. They also weren't babying their dogs and being too coddling. They just were expecting their dogs to be okay, and their dogs were. And I've been doing that since I got back, because that one really hit home for me, is I've been less fussy with Trippy, and I've definitely seen a difference, like a very noticeable difference. So I hope that helps you. I want dogs in this country to be just as well behaved, just as happy, just as confident as dogs were in Toronto. So please start doing these things. It's going to make a world of difference. I hope that helps you. Happy training, happy drinking, and I will see you next time. Thanks.